When the earthquake began to shake the world around me, my older sister and younger brother were quickly gathered up and protected by my parents. Together, the four of them managed to escape the crumbling house successfully. But in their haste, I was forgotten, left behind inside. It was in that moment that I stopped holding on to any hope for affection from my family. I decided then that no matter how long or difficult the journey, I would find my own place in the world, far away from them. In time, they would come to regret what they had done, but by then it would be too late. The natural disaster showed no mercy, and the building collapsed, burying the fragile life that was me. I was trapped beneath the rubble, helpless. Through a small crack in the debris, I could see the four of them outside, crying and hugging each other in relief. "It's okay," my mother sobbed, clutching my younger brother tightly. "Our whole family is safe. Everyone is safe." Her words only made them cry harder. My older sister, Isabel, who was always the most delicate, pointed to her feet. "Mom, Dad, you ran so fast just now, my little leather shoes got all scratched." My father looked at her with a face full of heartache and concern. "When I have a little time, Dad will take you to buy a new pair," he promised. "Thank you, Daddy. You're the best," she said, her smile returning. They were already making plans for a family trip they would take once the disaster was over. From the very beginning to the very end of their conversation, not a single one of them mentioned my name or wondered where I was. My leg was pinned painfully under a heavy wooden beam. Through that small opening in the wreckage, I saw everything that happened outside with perfect clarity. It wasn't until a full half-hour later that the rescue team finally arrived on our street. One of the workers called out, "Is there anyone else inside the house?" My father stepped forward, his voice steady. "No," he said. "Our whole family is here." My mother's attention was completely focused on Isabel and my younger brother Leo, hugging them close to her as she sobbed. It was around then that I finally regained consciousness. The rescue team was here. I was going to be saved. I tried to shout for help, but before the earthquake had even started, I'd been suffering from a severe throat infection. No matter how hard I tried, I could barely force out a complete word. Just a weak, rasping sound that nobody could hear. Misled by my father's words, the rescuers prepared to move on to the next house. "No," I thought, panicked. I struggled against the weight on my leg, tearing the wound wider. The sharp, searing pain brought a new wave of clarity to my mind. As the rescue workers started to turn away, I used my free hand to bang against a piece of metal near my head, creating a desperate, rhythmic knocking sound from beneath the rubble. It wasn't until the sky had grown completely dark that the team finally pulled me from the wreckage. By that point, I had lost a dangerous amount of blood and had slipped back into unconsciousness. Just before everything faded to black, I faintly heard one of the rescuers say, "Be careful with her. She's lost a lot of blood." My name is Clara Miller. From the moment I was born, I was a disappointment, carrying the weight of my family's hope for a son. Lying in a hospital bed, drifting in and out of a haze, I could hear my younger brother's loud, demanding voice from the hallway. "I want a hamburger! I want fried chicken! I don't want to be in the hospital anymore." "Okay, okay," my mother's voice soothed. "Mom will take you out to get some right now. We can go this very second." "Okay, anything you want," she said, and I could picture her dotingly scratching Leo's nose. My father, on the other hand, sounded irritated. "All right, just hurry up and take him out of here," he said. "Clara is still resting. She hasn't woken up in so many days. Who knows if she's just faking it to get attention?" My mother always chose to see my actions through the most cynical lens possible. The hospital room door closed, and after my mother left with Leo, the room fell quiet for a few moments. After a short while, my father let out a long sigh, as if he were talking to himself. "Don't blame us for this," he murmured. "It's your own fault for never being close to us, even when you were little. We didn't forget you on purpose. It was just so chaotic that day." I was awake, and my father knew it. His words plunged me into a fresh hell. I had always thought he was different. He didn't usually get involved in the day-to-day household dynamics and didn't seem as openly biased. When my mother served chicken for dinner and Isabel and Leo both got a leg piece while I got none, he would quietly slide a wing onto my plate. He would remind my mother to buy me new clothes when he noticed mine were worn. He would even try to comfort me when I was upset, telling me that my parents did love me. They just didn't know how to show it properly. But it turned out he was exactly the same as my mother. My older sister, Isabel, was the first child, born when my parents were most in love with each other. My younger brother, Leo, was the son they had desperately wanted, and he was spoiled accordingly, getting anything he desired. I always knew they didn't truly like me. I was sent to live in the countryside with my grandmother the moment I was born. Grandma loved me dearly, but she was old, and when it was time for me to start middle school, she had to send me back to my parents. That was when my nightmare truly began. After I was finally discharged from the hospital, they brought me home. Leo, taking full advantage of the freedom his young age gave him, was unrestrained in his cruelty. "So ugly," he sneered, looking at my missing leg. "A frog with no legs." Hearing this, my mother just lightly told him, "Don't talk nonsense," with no hint of reprimand in her voice. Isabel, meanwhile, just lowered her head and examined her fingernails, paying no attention to the scene at all. My father glanced at me, and when he saw I had no visible reaction, he nodded with satisfaction. "That earthquake has made you much more sensible," he commented. "Otherwise, you're always complaining that we're biased and don't know how to be a loving family." I clenched the blanket covering my legs, my face pale. When I didn't respond, the atmosphere in the room grew awkward. Leo continued to make faces at me, rolling his eyes. My mother sighed and came over to sit on the bed, reaching for my hand. "Clara, stop being angry, okay? Your brother is still young. Don't argue with him." I pulled my hand away from her forcefully and stared directly at him. He paused, frowning with dissatisfaction. Before he could say anything else, my father began to earnestly advise me. "Clara, you're our child, too. Of course we love you. You just can't always be so difficult. You haven't given us a single pleasant look since you came home from the hospital. Did we want you to—" He looked down at my empty right pant leg and trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I gave a bitter smile. Their love for me was a shockingly fragile and frighteningly thin thing. I met their gaze and spoke clearly. "I heard you." They looked at me, confused. I continued. "I heard you tell the rescue workers that the whole family was already outside and safe." As soon as I said it, the entire room fell silent. Even Isabel looked up from her nails. A flash of guilt crossed my parents' eyes, but it was quickly replaced by the anger of being exposed. My father abruptly stood up and went out to the balcony to smoke. My mother angrily turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind her with a deafening bang. My older sister raised her chin, her voice cold. "Do you think we owe you something? Do you think we all have to apologize to you? Stop being ridiculous, Clara. It was a natural disaster. No one wanted it to happen." This incident was treated like a tiny speck of dust in our family, stirring no lasting waves. Isabel was still my parents' cherished treasure, receiving all of their love and affection. If she wanted a new dress or a pair of shoes, she only had to mention it and they would appear before her. Leo was still unrestrained, finding new ways to amuse himself by mocking my disability. He even took the lead in bullying me at school, organizing chants and calling me broken-legged frog. My father seemed to notice that I was growing more and more silent, and he wanted to make up for something. So, occasionally, he would bring me small gifts home from work. But those gifts were always snatched away by my younger brother, who would cry and throw a tantrum until he got them. Isabel would also chime in with dissatisfaction, accusing Dad of being biased. Every time this happened, my father would just sigh helplessly. "Clara," he'd say, "Dad will buy you another gift next time. We're all family here. Don't be so petty." I hadn't even said a word, yet I was the one being petty. My mother, for her part, simply began to avoid me. She would tell the neighbors that I had become very eccentric and withdrawn after my disability. Life at school became even more difficult. The strange looks from my classmates felt like knives, cutting away at my self-esteem and dignity piece by piece. I became increasingly silent and gloomy. From that point on, I was always by myself. In such a suffocating environment, I grew more and more withdrawn. The only time I found a moment of peace was when I could immerse myself in the ocean of knowledge from my books. Because of this, my grades were always at the top of my class, and I eventually got into a prestigious Key High School. But it was also during this year that my grandmother became critically ill. Even my aunt, who had been living abroad for many years, came back to see her. A large group of relatives gathered in my grandmother's small house, sobbing uncontrollably. My mother pushed Leo in front of Grandma's bed. "Quick, say something nice to your grandma," she urged. Leo was a little afraid of Grandma, who had become as thin as a skeleton, and he refused to speak. My mother just poked his head. "You useless fellow," she said, but there was no real blame in her tone. My older sister, however, was full of sweet words. She tightly held Grandma's hand. "Grandma, don't you worry. I'll take good care of my little brother and sister. I'll be a good girl." Grandma was already very weak, her breathing shallow. Her gaze swept past Isabel and landed on me. "My dear girl," she whispered, but I was frozen, like a statue, unable to move or speak. "Grandma, my dearest grandma," I thought, my heart aching. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. The gazes of my relatives all turned to me, their eyes filled with dissatisfaction and accusation. "What's wrong with you?" one of them hissed. "Grandma is dying, and you can't even show a little emotion? No matter what, she's the one who raised you. How can you be so heartless?" "You really are heartless," another added. "No wonder you lost a leg. It's heaven punishing you." Their voices were loud and unconcealed, hitting me like cold raindrops. My mother's face turned ugly with embarrassment. She took a few steps to my side and yanked my arm hard. "What are you being so stubborn for now? It's one thing to act up at home, but how can you be so insensitive in front of Grandma? How could I have given birth to a child like you?" My father also looked over, his eyes full of disappointment. "Clara, your grandma always loved you the most. Can't you just let her go peacefully?" Isabel was sobbing uncontrollably into Grandma's blankets. Grandma, I can't bear to lose you." My younger brother stood behind the adults, whispering, "See, I told you she's weird. Grandma is like this, and she's not even sad." Everything around me began to distort and blur. In my world, only Grandma remained, her aged eyes full of pity and heartache for me. My body felt as if it were no longer my own. All my emotions were locked deep inside this shell. Just then, my aunt walked in from outside. Seeing the scene, she said sharply, "What are you all arguing about? Can't you just let my mother rest in peace?" But her words were swallowed up by the surrounding accusations, unable to stir much of a ripple. I stood there, a lonely island in a sea of condemnation. There was a buzzing sound in my ears. Before me were Grandma's eyes, growing dimmer and more spiritless with each passing second. And then I fainted. When I woke up, my aunt was sitting by my bed. Seeing my eyes open, hers immediately turned red. "Why is your body so depleted? Why have you been malnourished for so long?" she asked, her voice thick with emotion. "Grandma..." I couldn't hear anything else. I just kept muttering to myself. "I think I saw Grandma." I managed to squeeze out a smile, wanting to reach out and touch her. My aunt, however, cried out in alarm and called for a doctor. "What's wrong with her? Doctors, please examine her quickly." After a brief examination, the doctor delivered his conclusion. Due to excessive stress, the patient has suffered from severe psychological trauma. Moreover, she has a history of depression. My aunt was silent for a long minute. Then she broke down and cried. "Nothing can happen to her. I promised my mother I would take good care of you. Clara, nothing can happen to you." Just then, my parents happened to return from outside. My aunt immediately exploded, and a fierce quarrel broke out between them. My mother was full of grievances, shouting, "How have we not been good to her? She's the one who's awkward and difficult with a blank face all day. Who would dare to approach her?" My father stood with his back to us, smoking silently and not saying a word. My mother was still crying and complaining. "Sister-in-law, you're stabbing me in the heart by saying things like that. Don't listen to her nonsense. She just likes to play the victim to get sympathy." My aunt was trembling with anger. "Clara is malnourished? Did you know that?" That's because she's a picky eater, my mother retorted, stiffening her neck. She doesn't like anything. I don't know when it started, but at mealtimes, my younger brother always liked to compete with me silently. He would snatch the dishes I reached for and would deliberately fill his bowl with whatever I seemed to like. My parents never stopped him. My living allowance was also very small, not even enough to eat properly at the school cafeteria. They often forgot to give it to me at all. Sometimes, when I was hungry and asked my mother for money, she would impatiently scold me for being wasteful. Your older sister and younger brother have enough. Why are you the only one who doesn't? Later, I found out that their allowance was more than twice the amount of mine. I made a scene about it, but my parents' explanation was simple. Your older sister is older, she eats more. Of course she needs more than you. Your younger brother is a boy, he consumes more energy. Of course he needs more. In short, their logic dictated that giving me less was the right thing to do. The argument between my aunt and my parents ended with both sides leaving angry and unhappy. When I was discharged from the hospital, Isabel came to pick me up. She had always been a woman of few words with me, and she had a cold expression on her face the whole time. She walked very quickly, and I struggled to keep up, limping behind her on my crutches. Seeing that I was walking slowly, she frowned with impatience. Can you walk any faster? I have things to do. I don't have time to waste on you. My older sister flagged down a taxi and got in by herself. My legs and feet were clumsy, and I almost fell as I tried to get into the car. She was indifferent, watching my awkward struggle with cold eyes. The car ride was terrifyingly quiet. As we neared home, Isabel suddenly spoke. I like the bracelet on your wrist. Give it to me. I subconsciously covered the bracelet. Grandma had given this to me. She had worn it for decades. My aunt told me that Grandma came from a wealthy family and that this bracelet was very valuable. She told me to keep it safe. But even if the bracelet wasn't worth a penny, I would never give it to anyone. It was the last memento Grandma gave me. No, I refused without a moment's hesitation. My older sister pouted. Tsh, it's just some worthless trinket, who cares? When I got home, dinner was already on the table. My younger brother was playing video games in the living room. When he saw me, he immediately flashed a malicious smile. Oh, look, the broken-legged frog is back. My father was reading the newspaper in the living room and didn't say anything, as if he were already completely used to it. Dinner was the same as usual. My mother placed a chicken leg in both Isabel's and Leo's bowls. That wasn't enough for him, though. Leo greedily spooned all of the braised pork, his favorite, into his own bowl. My mother just smiled and poked his head. You're still so mischievous. I quietly ate the rice in my bowl, ignoring all of them. My father, as he usually did, clipped a chicken wing onto my plate. You like eating wings? Here, both wings are for you. I didn't say anything. The truth was, I liked eating chicken legs. Suddenly, my mother seemed to remember something and looked at me. We're short on money lately, she said calmly. Sell the bracelet. Impossible! I suddenly stood up from the table, showing my resentment in front of them for the very first time. Why are you so cruel? You want to take away even the last thing Grandma left for me? If you hate me so much, why did you even give birth to me in the first place? After shouting, I didn't wait to see their reaction. I rushed back to my bedroom and locked the door. Back in the safety of my room, I saw a new message from my aunt on my phone. Clara, I've arranged your passport. Let's go abroad together. Leave this place. Okay, I typed back. After pressing send, I felt all my strength leave me and I collapsed onto the bed. Outside the door, my mother's angry insults suddenly erupted. You've grown wings, have you? Grandma's bracelet was left for you to keep, not for you to own. Do you think it's yours now? My father was also shouting for me to open the door. Clara, open the door first! My younger brother's mocking voice followed closely behind. You monster! You're always causing trouble for everyone. You're so useless. I ignored them all. I just stared intently at the bracelet on my wrist. This was given to me by Grandma just before she passed away. I no longer hesitated. I started packing my luggage. I didn't have much to pack, just a small amount of clothing and a few books. I wanted to escape this home. I had wanted to for a very long time. Ages ago, my aunt had asked if I wanted to go with her, but at that time I was still worried about Grandma, so I decided to stay. The past few years flashed through my mind like a revolving lantern, one painful memory after another. Halfway through packing, I found a photograph of me with Grandma. In the photo, she was holding me tightly in her arms, looking at me with such kindness and love. Tears streamed down my face. This was the first time I had cried since Grandma died. Grandma! My voice was sharp with grief. The commotion outside the door suddenly stopped. The night outside the window was thick and dark, and everything around me was dead silent. Just as I closed my suitcase, I heard my parents arguing in hushed, urgent voices outside the door. Clara is your child too. My father's voice was impatient. You shouldn't be so harsh with her. Are you blaming me now? My mother shot back. Was it my idea to sell the bracelet? If you had any capability, we wouldn't be struggling to afford the children's tuition. All right, I can't argue with you, my father said in a low voice. My mother was still relentless, but her voice was already tinged with tears. How was I supposed to know she was so sensitive? That she actually has depression? Besides, didn't we all go through hardship? She's just being overly dramatic. She was still shirking any responsibility. Just then, my older sister sent me a text message. Your doctor just called us. He said you need to come back for a follow-up appointment. Clara, you should have just told us you were feeling bad instead of acting like you had no voice. You're not reading too many dramatic novels, are you? Are you trying to use death to punish us? Stop being so childish. Your health is your greatest asset. I looked at the messages, pressing my lips together tightly. Would it have helped if I had told them? I actually did tell them, many times, but no one ever believed me. My parents were still arguing outside the door, on and on. What use is it to say all this now? My sister-in-law is taking her abroad tomorrow. Clara, are you not going to be our daughter anymore? My mother's voice was now tinged with anxiety. Let her go wherever she wants, my father said in a sulky tone. I'll just pretend I never had this daughter. That night, I looked up at the moon outside the window and waited for morning. The next day, I woke up early. The time I had agreed upon with my aunt finally arrived. Just as I was about to push my bedroom door open and leave, my younger brother's voice came from behind me. I heard you're going abroad. It's none of your business, I replied coldly, turning to walk away. Are you leaving because you don't like this family? He asked, tilting his head and looking at me. His question made me stop. I was silent for a long moment. He puffed out his chest and continued. It's probably for the best that you leave. From now on, both the chicken legs and the wings will be all mine. I gave a bitter smile and shook my head. But then my younger brother spoke again, his voice softer. I won't bully you anymore in the future. Don't leave. I ignored him. I opened the door. As the door swung open, I saw my older sister leaning against the doorframe, watching me. You can't go, she said flatly. What do you mean? A bad feeling began to rise in my heart. Isabel slowly walked towards me. Mom and Dad went to find Auntie last night. They won't let her take you. They even told her that if she insists on taking you, they'll accuse her of kidnapping a child. My head felt like it exploded. My face instantly turned pale. My older sister looked a little uncomfortable, avoiding my eyes. I know you haven't been happy at home these past few years, she said. But we haven't done anything that wrong either. You're just too sensitive. Mom and Dad also know they've neglected you too much. After this, we'll all promise to treat you well. Just try to be more optimistic. I couldn't listen to another word. I stumbled back 2 steps. My younger brother returned to his usual mischievous self. Ha 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 ha, you can't go, serves you right, he chanted, making a face at me before running back to his room. With trembling hands, I opened my aunt's contact information and called her. The phone rang and rang, but no one answered. My older sister seemed a little unable to bear my despair. Forget it, Clara. There's really no need to go abroad. It's not that great over there anyway. I heard Auntie is just a dishwasher in some restaurant. How can she possibly afford to support you? Oh, just shut up, I shouted angrily. I felt like they were all driving me crazy. If I didn't leave this home soon, I knew I would go completely mad and I couldn't contact my aunt. My parents came back that night, and they were unusually warm and attentive towards me. My mother's face was full of an ingratiating, forced smile. She held out a beautifully wrapped small box with both hands. Clara, didn't you say before that you wanted to try the pastries from this shop? Mom waited in line for a very long time to buy them for you. You should try them. Her smile was strained and unnatural. My father also came over, holding a ticket in his hand. Daughter, I remember you like going to museums. I specially bought a ticket for you today. His tone carried a hint of cautiousness I had never heard before. I just sat on the sofa, staring blankly at my phone. The screen showed my unanswered messages to my aunt. I sent several more in a row, but she still didn't reply. My mother leaned over to look at my phone, and her eyes grew red and wet. She mumbled, "You want to leave so badly?" I was indifferent to their performance, like a puppet whose soul had been pulled out. I mechanically refreshed the chat history on my phone. Nothing they did could stir the slightest ripple in my heart. My mother saw that I wasn't reacting at all, and her smile began to falter, but she still spoke hesitantly. Clara, Mommy will stay home from work to be with you tomorrow, okay? And then the day after tomorrow, we'll go see a doctor. The doctor said your condition is getting worse. As she spoke, she reached out to hold my hand. I instinctively pulled my hand away, as if her touch was something terrifying. My father coughed awkwardly and added, "Yeah, daughter, I'm not going to work tomorrow either. We'll both stay home with you." Their pleading and cautious voices echoed in the living room, but there was still no response from me. Just then, my younger brother came out of his room, reluctantly pushed forward by my older sister. He didn't dare to look at me, and his eyes were still wet from crying. Sister Clara, Sister Isabel already taught me a lesson. I know I was wrong. I won't bully you anymore, okay? I'm still young. Don't hold it against me. His usual mischievous look was gone, replaced by a forced helplessness. But to me, this was just a clumsy and laughable performance. My older sister walked over and stood next to me. Clara, when you get better, we'll go to college together. I'll look out for you. She placed a hand on my shoulder, but I only felt a deep cold spread through my body. I looked at them, my heart filled with an endless numbness. Why were they suddenly acting like this? Did they have some hidden motive? Surely they weren't trying to trick me into giving them the bracelet, were they? I couldn't help but assume the worst intentions about them. I instinctively covered the bracelet on my wrist. "The bracelet," I whispered. "The bracelet. Impossible. I won't give it to you." Their pupils widened in shock. They hurriedly tried to explain that wasn't what they meant, but I didn't believe them. I only felt something hot and furious burning in my chest. I suddenly stood up and started smashing everything I could see. Before long, the living room was a mess of broken objects. The sound of shattering glass and porcelain mingled with my family's cries. It was incredibly noisy. My father tried to approach me, but I swung the glass cup in my hand and hit him on the forehead, breaking the skin. Just destroy it all. Destroy everything. This was the only thought in my mind. Since I was in so much pain, then everyone would suffer with me. When I was finally tired of smashing things, I stopped, my eyes vacant and empty. Clara, please don't be like this. My mother's voice was tearful, full of anxiety and helplessness. I slowly turned my head, looking at her expressionlessly. Half a month later, I was still causing trouble at home every single day. My younger brother had no choice but to move into his school's dormitory, and my older sister also returned to her college campus. As for me, I took a leave of absence from school and stayed home. My parents took turns guarding me, and both of them had fresh bruises and scratches on their faces from me. I couldn't control myself. During the day, I would scream and yell and smash things. At night, I would cry, my sobs heartbreaking and loud. The neighbors had complained many times. One day, I was tired of making a mess, so I lay back down on my bed. In a daze, I heard my mother's suppressed sobbing from the next room. What are we going to do? Clara has gone completely crazy. She's going to ruin this family. This is what we deserve. My father choked back his own tears. We didn't take good care of her. A month after that, I was forcibly taken back to the hospital. After I attacked one of the staff, the doctor delivered a new conclusion. The patient's condition had transitioned to bipolar disorder. My parents' faces changed dramatically. The doctor, holding his injured head, said sternly, "The last examination showed moderate depression. How did it get so severe in just 2 months? What did you people do to her? Is this child even your own?" After getting home, I started smashing things again. This time, I even hit my mother on the head with a lamp. Unexpectedly, she didn't cry. Instead, she just looked at me with an expression of utter despair. Dad quickly found the first aid kit and began cleaning her wound without saying a word. My mother stared at me, her eyes full of pain and a desperate struggle. "Clara, do you hate us that much? Do you want us to die? Why? Is it just because we forgot you in the earthquake that year? For all these years, have we ever abused you? Did we ever deny you food and clothing? Why are you tormenting us like this?" She roared, her voice hoarse and raw. "If this continues, this family will be destroyed by you." I just tilted my head and looked out the window, completely immersed in my own world. I didn't hear a single word she said. Early the next morning, sunlight shone into the room through the window. I mechanically got up and washed up. My mother's head was still bandaged, but she still managed to smile at me. A hearty breakfast was already set on the table, including the bread and milk I used to love the most. She looked at me expectantly. "Clara, try some of Mom's cooking." I sat down expressionlessly, then knocked over the glass of milk. My father, who was sitting across from me, was drenched. I was like a robot, repeating the same demand endlessly. "I want noodles. If you don't cook me noodles, are you trying to starve me to death?" Noodles. Grandma's scallion oil noodles. It was a dish they would never know how to cook. The house was in chaos again. One semester passed, and my older sister and younger brother both came back for a visit. Neither of them dared to approach me. One day, I stopped them as they were trying to sneak outside. "Do you dislike me?" I asked. They both quickly waved their hands, stammering that they loved me the most. I nodded with satisfaction. Then I went crazy. Under their startled gazes, I began crawling on the floor in the dark hallway, screaming wildly. My younger brother screamed in fear and scurried away. My older sister's legs turned to jelly, and she fainted on the spot. The neighbors heard the commotion and helped take Isabel to the hospital. My parents were completely scared now. They used the little money they had left to rent an apartment for my sister and brother across town, separating me from them completely. Then, my parents continued to stay home and guard me. Some neighbors tried to advise them. "This child finally got into a key high school and then she went crazy. It's truly pitiful, but this is no way to go on. Why don't you find some time to send her to a mental hospital?" But my father became furious and chased the neighbor away. "My daughter is not going to that horrible place. If you can't stand it, then you can move away." My mother, on the other hand, just sobbed and held me in her arms. "Don't be afraid. Mom and Dad won't do that to you." But my whole body trembled. My mind was clear for just a moment. "Grandma." I fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I saw Grandma. When I woke up, I had only one thought in my mind. I needed to go find Grandma. That night, I climbed onto the rooftop of our apartment building, gazing at the tall buildings in the distance. The night wind howled against my face. I lowered my head and caressed the bracelet on my wrist. Under the moonlight, the jade emitted a gentle, soft glow. "Grandma, I want to see you," I murmured softly, and was about to step forward into the empty air. "No!" A heartbreaking cry suddenly came from behind me. I turned and saw my father. My mother rushed over like a madwoman. "Please, don't do anything foolish." My father was frantically approaching me, one slow step at a time. Behind him was my mother, also scared and dazed. "Clara, come down, okay? Please stop scaring Mom." Her voice was trembling violently. My father's eyes were also red. "Dad was confused before, Clara. He ignored your feelings for so many years. We love you very much." I looked at them with a blank face, without joy or sadness. Mom cried even harder, her sobs almost choking her. Dad trembled as he reached out a hand to pull me back, but I took a step back, avoiding him. I was just one step away from falling into the abyss. Mom was so scared she lost her voice. It was at that exact moment that my phone suddenly rang. It was my aunt. My mind cleared up a bit. The call was answered. My aunt's anxious voice came from the other end. Clara, I'm so sorry. I'm really, really sorry. I found out I had cancer 8 years ago, and that's why I abandoned you. I didn't know how to face you. I regret it so much. I didn't expect you to be so ill. Don't worry. I'm already on the plane. I'll be there to pick you up soon. We'll leave together then. I quietly said, Okay. The wind howled in my ears. The sound of police sirens also got closer and closer. Time seemed to stop. I stood on the edge between life and death, still for a long time. But in that moment of stillness, a powerful force pulled me back. It was my father. I fell into his arms. My mother quickly rushed over and hugged me tightly, crying uncontrollably, unable to catch her breath. After that day, my parents watched me even more closely, and my aunt arrived 2 days later. She was skin and bones, like a walking skeleton. She was wearing a knitted hat that was completely out of season, and I knew it was because she had no hair left. My aunt cried in front of me, apologizing to me again and again. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I really didn't know. It's okay, Auntie, I said. For the first time in a long time, I didn't scream like a madman. My parents stood to the side, looking at me with faces full of guilt and heartache. My aunt hugged me. When the passport is ready, she whispered, we'll leave. Okay. My parents couldn't bear to watch anymore. They went back to my room and quietly began to help me pack. That night, my aunt and I slept in the same room. She told me stories about her childhood, about how strict Grandma used to be with her. I listened quietly and eventually fell asleep. In the middle of the night, I woke up from a dream. The house was shaking slightly. The earthquake was coming again. I suddenly opened my eyes and shook my aunt awake. She was still not fully conscious, dazed from sleep. Hurry, get out! It's an earthquake! I got up, grabbed my crutch, and pulled my aunt out of bed. My aunt's face was pale. Her stomach ache from the cancer was acting up again. I didn't care about anything else. I grabbed her medicine from the nightstand and supported her with my crutch as we made our way out of the house. Fortunately, we lived on the second floor and we reached the street before long. We got to an open space just as the world began to shake violently. My aunt was in too much pain to straighten up, and a trickle of blood spilled from the corner of her mouth. I couldn't think of anything else. I quickly shoved the medicine into her mouth, but her condition didn't improve. And just like that, she fainted. I held her and sat on the ground, my eyes vacant. Eventually, someone came over and asked me how I was. Are you okay? He asked. Auntie is not okay, I replied numbly. The rescue worker glanced at her, and his face turned grim. He gestured to his colleagues in the distance. Quick, come over here. There's a patient here. The medical staff carried my aunt onto a stretcher, but I remained stunned in place. It was the same rescue worker from the first earthquake. He handed me a bottle of water. Don't be afraid, little sister. The earthquake wasn't very strong this time. Everything is okay now. Seeing that I didn't speak, he continued to ask, By the way, was there no one else at home when you ran out? My pupils suddenly constricted. Family? Grandma is dead. I have no family anymore. Grandma is gone, I said, my voice flat. I have no family. The rescue worker looked at me with sympathy. Just then, my parents ran out from the direction of our building, supporting each other. They both had injuries. My father's was especially bad. His head was covered in blood. Hearing my words, his body, which had been trying so hard to stay upright, finally collapsed. My mother looked at me with a face full of sadness, then suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. She could barely stand. I was still indifferent, just repeating that one sentence over and over. I have no family. Later, I found out that after the second earthquake started, my parents were awakened by the shaking. They had immediately rushed to my room to find me, but I wasn't there. In the shaking house, they frantically called my name until they saw me from the window, standing outside, completely fine. Only then did they feel relieved, just as a part of the ceiling fell on them. After the earthquake, my parents were both sent to the hospital. The apartment where my sister and brother were staying was not affected, so they were fine. My father was hit on the head, and his injury was quite serious. He needed to undergo brain surgery. When he went into the emergency room, our small group gathered outside to wait. My mother was mostly fine physically, but her hair had turned completely white overnight. The doctor said this was due to extreme emotional distress. I hid in my aunt's arms, silent and still. My older sister looked at my mother's white hair with heartache. She would turn to look at me from time to time, pressing her lips together, unable to squeeze out a single word. My younger brother, on the other hand, couldn't hold back his anger. He rushed towards me. "How can you be so heartless? Why did you run out by yourself? Don't you know they're your parents, too?" I trembled and hid deeper in my aunt's arms. My aunt was shaking with anger. She slapped my younger brother across the face with all her might. "You know you're a family, right? Then why didn't a single one of you remember Clara that year?" My aunt's thin, frail body completely shielded me from him. Leo was so stunned by the slap that he couldn't react. He covered his cheek, his eyes red, but he didn't say anything else. The air around us seemed to freeze. My mother seemed to be shocked awake by the slap. She stumbled over, her voice hoarse and filled with an endless despair. "Clara, we are so sorry." I finally understood. I finally understood what it felt like to be abandoned. I buried my face in my aunt's shoulder. My body trembled slightly. All the hardships and pain I had suffered over the years overwhelmed me like a powerful tide. I opened my mouth to speak, but my throat felt completely blocked. My older sister walked over to my mother and helped her up, then looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Clara, no matter how much we try to make amends, can we not erase the mistakes we made in the past?" My whole body tensed up. My aunt hugged me even tighter. Just then, the door of the operating room opened and the surgeon walked out. "The surgery went well. The patient will wake up soon." Hearing this news, my mother's legs turned to jelly and she almost collapsed to the ground. My older sister quickly squatted down to support her, comforting her softly. My younger brother stood to the side, seemingly still not having recovered from the slap. My aunt patted my shoulder and said softly to me, "Don't be afraid, we can leave in a week." I nodded. A week later, my aunt and I stood in the airport, ready to board our plane. Behind us, a commotion arose. "Clara!" It was my mother. Ignoring the airport staff's attempts to stop her, she tried to rush through the security checkpoint. Behind her were my father, still bandaged, being supported by my older sister and younger brother. My mother's face was covered in tears, her expression full of sorrow. "Clara, don't go. Please give Mom another chance. Mom really knows she was wrong." My father also struggled to walk faster, his face pale, but he kept moving forward. He said in a hoarse voice, "Daughter, will you stay? I will definitely make it up to you in the future." My aunt instinctively protected me, standing in front of me. I turned around and gave them a small, distant smile. My mother broke through the barrier, ran up to me, and then knelt down on the floor in front of me with a heavy thump. "Clara, you're a piece of flesh that fell from my body. How could I not love you? Please just take pity on me. Don't leave, okay?" Saying this, she covered her face and cried. My father, not yet recovered from his surgery, was already covered in a cold sweat. He stood a few meters away, trembling as he reached out his hand, as if wanting to touch me from a distance. His eyes were full of grief and caution. My older sister and younger brother also had red eyes. Isabel pressed her lips together, not daring to look directly into my eyes. My younger brother, on the other hand, was full of regret. He mumbled, "Sister Clara, I really know I was wrong. I won't bully you anymore. Please don't leave, okay?" I did not soften. My aunt and I still boarded the plane. Looking at the city shrinking outside the window, I knew in my heart that my new life had finally begun. My aunt's cancer did not continue to worsen. Her condition was well controlled. The doctor explained to me in English that a person's mood has a great impact on the progression of an illness. "With your companionship," he said, "your mother's condition is very well controlled." Yes, I call my aunt Mom now. I have been officially transferred to her household registration. My aunt is unmarried and childless. I am her only child. My bipolar disorder is also slowly disappearing. Everything in my life is getting better. I don't know what happened back in that country. Only occasionally do text messages arrive on my phone, asking how I am doing. I don't reply to any of them. The mountains are high and the rivers are long, and I have finally found my own place in the world.